London and Paris continue to make plans about military intervention in Ukraine. It is disguised as the so-called peacekeeping mission on March 21st in Northwood at the initiative of the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. In hybrid form, there was a meeting of military brass of 30 countries which had quite an interesting name, Coalition of the Willing. These countries are ready to send their troops to Ukraine. This topic will continue today in Paris at the leaders' level. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that our country stands categorically against this scenario that is fraught with a direct confrontation between Russia and NATO.
Countries coming forward with contributions on everything from logistics and command and control to deployments on land, on air, and on sea.
So last time I checked, we were supposed to be working out some sort of peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. But as Trump is on the phone with Putin and Zelensky trying to work something out, meanwhile, the UK and France are having sneaky little meetings about sending troops into Ukraine. If you really want peace, if you really want a ceasefire, if you want this war to come to an end, the last thing you do is go in front of 1,000 cameras and announce to your nation that you're ready to deploy troops on land, air, and sea in Ukraine to defend Ukraine from Russia. What? Like, this is the very last thing you would do if you want peace. But these people don't want peace. They want war. They're desperate for war, and they're going to do whatever they can to drag the U.S. into this. This is their last desperation effort, which is why they're talking about sending troops to Ukraine now, before a peace deal gets worked out, before a ceasefire deal gets worked out, because they want to drag the U.S. into this. You see, if troops from the UK or troops from France came under attack while they were in Ukraine, we would kind of be obligated to come to their defense because of NATO, which is one of the reasons why a lot of people think that we should pull out of NATO. And when looking at that, I'm kind of hesitant. Maybe we shouldn't pull out of NATO. Maybe we should. We don't want to lose all of our allies. But if our allies are actively trying to drag us into World War III, a war they know they can't win on their own. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand, Russia and UK, they're talking tough. They cannot back it up. Europe cannot back up any of this tough talk that they're doing against Russia. The rest of NATO cannot back up any of this stuff. They can't. They simply cannot. They depend on us. They want to throw rocks, right, at Russia. They want to poke the bear and then say, oh, America, come on. Come on, what are you doing, America? US, what are you doing? Why aren't you helping? That's what's going on here. So if they drag this into a bigger conflict between NATO and Russia, the U.S. is going to be the main one that has to deal with that unless something changes. And they know that, so this is their last-ditch effort to drag us in to this conflict. So as the U.S. is desperately trying to figure out a way to end this war, the UK and France and others are actively trying to sabotage peace talks. But not just that, they're trying to escalate this conflict to the point of no return. And Zelensky and Ukraine, they literally just this morning launched an incursion into Russia. So basically they have invaded a small portion of Russia and they're taking over small villages right now as we speak. There's a lot of fighting going on, and this is like the last thing you do if you want peace or a ceasefire. Now, what their plan is, they plan on trying to take over some small areas in Russia, and they want to use this as a bargaining chip at the bargaining table when it comes to working out a deal with Russia. But last time they tried this, it didn't necessarily work. It worked at first, but they've been driven out of those areas, so now they're trying it again. And like I said, I understand that they want to try to use these regions that they're taking over, these little villages. They want to use this as a bargaining chip, but this is not what you do when you're trying to make peace, when you're trying to have a ceasefire, this is not what you do. And folks, when it comes to war, you have to take your emotions and your feelings and you got to put them to the side. Because this is real life. This is war, folks. This is not a true crime story. This is not your favorite celebrity drama with Blake Lively or whatever the hell her name is. This is real shit. Okay? Your emotions, your feelings don't matter here at all. So you can look at this situation and say, Russia is wrong for invading. Russia is very wrong. Ukraine shouldn't give up any land. How dare Russia do this? Russia is the aggressor. Russia, blah, blah, blah. You could feel that way all you want. It doesn't matter. The reality is that reality is harsh. We live in a very harsh world. People have been dying in wars before you were born, before I was born. They're going to be dying in wars way after we're gone. Yeah, I think it's wrong that people get in tanks and blow people up. But it's been going on before I was conceived, and it's going to be going on for years after I'm gone. That's the reality of the situation. And right now, in this conflict between Russia and Ukraine, I don't care what people are telling you online, Russia is winning. Russia has the upper hand. And when it comes to the bargaining table, often there's someone at the bargaining table that has an upper hand, and they get the better deal. Okay? There's no outcome here where Ukraine is going to get the better deal in the ceasefire or the better deal in peace talks. Russia is going to get the better deal because Russia is winning. In fact, these deals don't even make sense for Russia. I want Russia to take one of these deals so the war can end. But if you're really looking at it from a military standpoint, it doesn't make sense for Russia to even make these deals. And it definitely doesn't make sense when they're trying to work out deals, but meanwhile the UK and France are like, we're gonna send troops to, and we're gonna occupy land, air, and sea. And then Ukraine is, launching incursions and invasions and little, villages and places in Russia. So it definitely doesn't even make sense for Russia to go along with these peace deals, folks. That's just reality. It's not an opinion. It's not my opinion. It's just looking at the situation. It doesn't make sense at all. And it's frustrating because I think that most people's ideas about what's happening in this conflict are misconstrued because they're getting their ideas about what's happening in this conflict from the mainstream media, who has been lying about Ukraine winning this war for years. Ukraine was never winning this war, never even close. They have no hopes of winning this war. That was never even an option. Ukraine winning was never an option. Anyone with common sense or knowledge of how these things work or knowledge of prior military history, you already knew that Ukraine winning this outright was never an option. But meanwhile, we also have these content creators. You could look on YouTube. 99.9% of the people who are covering the war in Ukraine, they're all spreading fake Ukrainian propaganda. And most of them are being paid handsomely to do so. So they'll tell you, oh, Russia's down bad. Big loss for Russia. This is the end for Putin. They'll tell you all of that nonsense, but none of that nonsense is true. I hate to break it to you, but none of it is real. Just like yesterday. Yesterday, British tabloids, Western media, they all picked up on, oh, Putin's limousine just exploded. They just got close to killing Putin. And I told you guys yesterday, go check out the video if you haven't already. I said, something about this ain't right. Something about this reads to me like it's propaganda. Meanwhile, even respected people here in the West, respected people here in the U.S., some of your favorite content creators and political analysts and conspiracy theorists, whatever you want to call them, a lot of these people picked up on the story and they spread the story. Oh, Putin's limo exploded. Oh, they're getting close to taking out Putin. All of that was BS, ladies and gentlemen. It was propaganda. propaganda. And most of what you see here in the West, US, Canada, UK, most of the news that we're being fed about the war in Ukraine is fake. It's fake. They'll tell you Ukraine is winning the war. And then two days later, oh, Ukraine really needs help. They're not winning. We need to send billions and billions of dollars. Now, I'll acknowledge that Ukraine is doing better than anyone expected. Ukraine has held off better than anyone expected. But let's not sit here and pretend that's because Ukraine just has this well-trained fighting force, the strength of Ukrainians. No, it's because literally every freaking country, every civilized country on earth basically is sending money to Ukraine to help them fight Russia. Basically every civilized country on earth is sending billions of dollars and also billions of dollars worth of fighting equipment, worth of military equipment. Folks, if someone gave me trillions of dollars and every country on earth sent me fighter jets and tanks and everything, I could hold off Russia for a couple of weeks. So that's what's happening here. Ukraine is being fully propped up with all of this money, all of this military might from all around the world, and it's still not enough. It's not even enough for them to defend their territory because they've been taking significant losses. And unfortunately, like I said, the reality is the losses that they've taken, they're not going to get them back. We're not going to go to the bargaining table and it's not going to work out like, all right, Russia, all of the land you took over, you got to hand it back to Ukraine and then we'll end this. That's not how this ends. Russia's not going to give back the land, the regions that they've taken over. That's not how this ends. I hate to break it to you, folks. But like I said, you got to be very careful where you're getting your information about this conflict because there's just so much going on right now. Just like, as I was talking about, the limo exploding yesterday. That news story was spread on purpose. They're also spreading news stories about Putin being very sick. Zelensky is literally on the news in France telling people that Putin's going to die soon. Like, they're spreading this stuff, this propaganda, for a reason. They think it makes Putin look weaker. They think they're sending Putin a message. Whatever their reasons are, just understand that most of the information that is flowing out of this conflict, you got to take it with a grain of salt. Because on one hand, you got propaganda coming from Ukraine, propaganda coming from the West, but there's propaganda coming from Russia too. And often the truth lies somewhere in the middle. So it's really hard to try to make sense of things, but that's what you have me for. I try to make sense of things so you don't have to. But that's not me telling you that you got to take my word for all of this. You could do your own research as well. Just understand that a lot of the sources you go to for research are actively being paid to lie to you to make one side look better or that side look better. So when it comes to war in general, and this has always been the case, you got to be really careful with the information that is out there. And of course, history is always written by the victors. So even when you look at military conflicts from the past, we're not being told the truth about those either. So we're definitely not being told about the truth, or being told the truth about what's happening in the present day. But with all of that being said, I'm going to talk to you all soon in the next one. I want you guys to drop a comment below, hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you then.